I've got a ton of draft stuff too.
And away we go. And it is a lovely afternoon. My allergies are killing me. I'm sure everybody else is in the same boat. Doesn't matter. We roll on. No excuses here on this edition of the Daily Ticket. Jam-packed day of programming on The Gambler, getting you ready for all things March Madness, Phillies in action, NFL, Cowboys making moves. So, we're going to talk about that. And we're rolling out a new segment here. Today's show, Inside the Insiders. True story. I went out the other night, like 2 weeks ago, a week ago, whatever it was. And I went to this lovely establishment and they had a sports crawl. And on the crawl, they were showing tweets from insiders. And I go, dude, that's cool. And I said, that's a great segment for my show where I'm just like, dude, let's go off. We'll spin. And obviously it's better when I have a co-host like I do today. Mark Henry Jr. joining me, host of the Tough Cover Radio Show, 11 to 1 right here on The Gambler every Saturday morning, getting you ready, of course, for March Madness Final Four. Mark, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I mean, it's good afternoon for anybody who, may not have a vested interest in, the stock market out there, but maybe not if you do.
All right. I have a question. And this is a deep cut to get the party started here. I don't care. This is what we do. Let's take. We both know. Everybody should know by now that Mark and myself, we agree. We don't see eye to eye with the current president, administration. We're not team them. Let's put it that way. And that's, hey, look, everybody is entitled to their own opinion. It doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, I just want to see this country be successful. At the end of the day, when everybody's telling me that if you want to retire, Kamala is not the one. All right, well, that's fine. And I'm not trying to be absolutely panicked at this point in time. My question to you is, do you have any idea why this dude wants to create a complete global war, economic war? Like, here's my, so Mark, you're shaking your head no. Do you, like, in your heart of hearts, deep down in your stomach, you don't have a general take on this? Because I do.
I'd rather hear yours. Yeah.
I think this dude has been able to, first of all, I think he loves, we know this, we've been dealing with him for years now, even decades. He loves when it's all about him, and he loves anarchy. He loves, and he's talked his whole life every day. So there's been plenty of times where he said as such. People are running that, whatever. So that's one, right? He loves I watched this morning for the first time in my life a split screen of CNBC and Fox Business on YouTube TV. How about that? First time in my life. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but I'm watching. I'm intrigued. I have money in the stock market. I have a 401k, again, X, Y, and Z, right? All I care about is us doing better as a country. All the other stuff, I get it. But when it comes to dollars and cents, that's what it's all about. And I saw a line a couple of weeks ago where it was like, stock market don't give a damn if you're a Republican or Democrat. Like, they call it's a straight shooter. You can't push it, can't sway it, can't bully it. It's the stock market. So with that being said, teach their own on that. So that's one. I think he enjoys the crisis. Number two is, my theory is this dude, because if you listen to a few comments from people that are ultimately should be decision makers behind all this madness, he is now in charge of negotiations with all of these countries. So my theory is this dude is willing to do whatever it takes, throw this country, this global economy into a borderline war, a fritz, whatever word you want to use at this point in time. And all in all, it's going to come back one by one where he's going to negotiate and he's going to work out the best deal for himself. For like, is that a good take? Like, I don't know. Am I lost? Where are we at in that?
What I was kind of reading, and if you're looking for like kind of motivation, but I don't even know what the motivation is because he theoretically shouldn't be running again. But what someone was saying was that if he tanks the economy early enough in his tenure, he could still blame it on Biden and blame it on what he took over. And then if he just gets back to where it is now, then it's like I fixed the economy. Look at what I did.
Mm.
And I don't know if it seems insane because there's no economist out there, Republican or Democrat,
Zero.
that's like supporting what he's doing
No.
and saying it's smart. Even some staunch Republicans voting against it in some capacities. It's insane.
I
I
watched
don't know.
Fox Business. I watched Fox Business this morning for that specific reason because I wanted to see what they were spinning. They were still had their Trump love out there because you know how that channel is. But at the end of the day, nobody was on there. Like I got Jim Cramer. That dude's still on television too. Like even he was trying to find some positives and he couldn't. I know these things are going to take some time, but man, it's wild right now, and it is not good. Not good.
Yeah,
Period.
I don't want to spend too long on it, or I'm not the most informed economist out there, but it does feel crazy to know we're probably living in the 24 hours of like the second Great Depression right now at this point.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like you said, I'm not an economist. I just this is wild. The tariffs, apparently 10% for China, and that's going to go up to 25%. Here's my bare bones thought: is that like eventually it's all going to get caught up to us, and things are only going to get more expensive.
Of course,
I guess he's going to sit here and say that he plans on. Apparently, that's going to only make people want to do more in America, United States. It'd be great to hear that. That's another thing. Like it just feels like, man, this is all willy nilly, just throwing stuff up against the wall. Like I said, the one dude who was on CNBC yesterday, interior, I forget what exactly his title. He's the one that should be knowing what's happening, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm not a part of negotiations." So it's like the God himself, Trump himself, is going to handle all of this. It's just wild to me, man. Absolutely wild to me. So here we are, fingers crossed. Like I said, I care about the country. I care about my neighbors, even if we don't see eye to eye as far as we vote, my family members, even if we don't see eye to eye who we choose to run this country, I still want us all to do great. And I don't necessarily think that this is a step in the right direction, but who am I? Who am I, Mark Henry Jr.?
What a joke. What a joke.
All right. With that being said, let's talk some sports. What do you say?
Let's do it.
I had to get into some tariff talk because I just was wondering what else anybody else is thinking right now. And if you out there watching would like to give us your questions, comments, concerns, whether you're pro-Democrat or pro-Republican, if we can have an honest conversation, love to hear your thoughts. I have no issues talking about that whatsoever. At the end of the day, it's money. Money makes the world go around. Now, let's see if we can win some bets. What do you say about that, Mark Henry Jr.? Where do we start? Let's talk some Major League Baseball.
Phillies coming up.
Yeah.
You are just in baseball.
You are red hot in the MLB. All right. What has been your approach 6-7 games into the season?
Well, I would say that the Dodgers have certainly helped, but it's the same thing that I kind of always do with Baseball Savant. It's a good website out there that gives you it gives you the stats of the opposing team against the pitcher. It's called BVP. So it's like if there's 100 at bats of the Phillies having experience against today's Rockies pitcher, and that lineup is hitting 350, whereas our pitcher, the opposing lineup's hitting 220 in a good amount of at bats. That's generally what I look at for totals and for sides. But the Dodgers have been really good to me. Fading the Mets early in the year with some terrible starting pitching up front in that first weekend was helpful. Phillies team total overs have been pretty good so far here. They've been a frustrating watch, it feels like, for most of the games, which is that's customary for this group, I think, at this point. But 5 runs, 6 runs, 11 runs, 7 runs. Obviously, the one game where they only scored the 1 run, but they've went over their total in 4 of their 5 games. So that's certainly been a help as well.
All right. Yeah. And we got some entertaining conversations to get into as far as look, it's funny because, Mark, I'm watching the game the other day. I'm watching Yankees and Diamondbacks 2 nights ago when the Diamondbacks went yard with a grand slam. And you could hear a pin drop, and it was like, man, this is great. And then you're like, yeah, we still got 150 plus games to go. But that literally had like a playoff vibe to it. And I was just like, what's going to happen over these next few months. We'll be in the dog days of summer and so on and so forth. But it was still fun. If they could capture that emotion and be able to like shorten the season down. It would never happen, but you understand where I'm coming from. Anyways, I was watching that game, and you don't want to get too carried away because it's so early in the season. But, when you do look at some of the teams that had expectations and are struggling out the chute, or teams that are kicking in the door and just, Padres undefeated, Dodgers undefeated, Phillies doing what they're doing, highlighting the Braves who have yet to win a baseball game. And Mark, I stumbled into a stat today that says nobody that has started the season 0-7 has made the playoffs in Major League Baseball history.
Yeah.
So when we start talking about the Atlanta Braves at this point in time of the season on April 3rd, is there a point where it's like, hey, man, you guys better get it fixed, or this season's going to be a disaster? And maybe you don't bring back Acuna and Strider a little bit earlier or whatever it may be. I don't think we're there yet. But, man, do you put any stock into that 0-7? Nobody's made baseball playoffs before?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you just think about the numbers, and let's say you need to win 90 games to make the playoffs. You need to go 90-72. Now that's 90-65. You need to play at a 95 win pace for the rest of the year. Obviously, that's like pretty simple math, but I'm not. You can't just poo-poo this. Obviously, I was ready to poo-poo it after the first weekend against the Dodgers. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that get swept by the Dodgers, or 3 of 4, or whatever the case may be. I'm not going to kill anybody for losing to the Dodgers. We have a tough weekend coming up here in Philly. Hopefully we fare better. But once you get swept again after that, or before that, I should say, you get swept before that Dodgers series as well, it starts to add up. 0-7 at this point. They were a team I projected to win over 100 games. They're my pick to win the World Series. I thought, this team fighting and winning, I forget the exact number, 90-ish games last year.
89, right? Did they win 90? I thought it was a nightmare of a season. They still won 89.
89. Yeah, I knew it was right in that range, and they snuck into the playoffs with no Strider, no Acuna. So many of their top guys having the worst years of their career. Matt Olson having his worst year in a while. Austin Riley having the worst year of his career. Arcia fell off a cliff. Like Michael Harris, I think he ended up picking it up and having like a normal year for him, but he was terrible for like 4 months last year. So they just had a nightmare season, and I thought, you get Acuna back in May. You get Strider back in May. You went out and you made a couple pickups with Profar, who's now suspended for 80 games and missing the entire playoffs. I thought they got a steal of a contract on Profar, given how good he was for San Diego last year. And I think we might know now why he had that, age 30-ish breakout in San Diego randomly when he was taking some good stuff maybe. But the Braves have to pay the brunt for that. And you know what? There is no team in baseball I wouldn't feel better about that happening to than the team that's locked up all these 20-year-old Dominican players to criminal contracts, basically locking them down for 10 years of their prime, making like $10 to $15 million. And I get it. They wouldn't have made that money for the first 5 years. They got a nice little bump, but then you're giving away like 5 years of free agency of these guys who'd be going out there getting $500 million deals. The Braves are thieves for what they've been doing for years. It's good to see them kind of get a little payback and get a little, maybe pay for some steroid production and then for that guy to go immediately out. It's great to see. I will say, if you were to say, here's why the Braves won't be that good this year, I bet you would probably say Chris Sale regressing or Chris Sale getting hurt. That's not the case. He went out and threw a gem against the Dodgers, and the lineup didn't hit. The lineup didn't come through and hit that game. Obviously, again, like you said, still 7 games into the year, they could absolutely change that trend. But I think that trend is a trend for a reason. You don't see good teams start 0-7 very often.
Yeah, I just think, look, maybe not now on April 3rd, maybe April 13th, maybe April 20th. If they don't get this right, like you pointed out, man, it's just that much more difficult to dig yourself out of that hole when you know you have a number that you have to hit. It's just you have to be realistic about it. That's all. And again, anything is possible. We've seen even last year what the Detroit Tigers did, even when the Phillies were in the dumpster a couple years ago when they fired Girardi. Like, I never thought they would have that run in them. So crazier things have happened, but that is out there. Teams that have started 0-7 have never made the playoffs before. Do with it what you will. I'm with you, though. I did have the expectations of the Braves winning the division, so I can't change my pick on that one just
On
yet.
that note, though, the odds, they were the overwhelming favorite coming into this year. Not overwhelming, but they were like plus 120. I think the Phillies were around plus 180, plus 190, and then the Mets were around plus 250. Now you're looking, the Phillies are anywhere from plus 110 to 125. The Mets are anywhere from plus 170 to plus 200. Braves are now like plus 250, plus
Get
275.
out of here.
So they
Wow.
have adjusted the odds. And something I will say is, and the odds aren't as good as they were a couple days ago. Maybe I'm getting in at the wrong time. Maybe I should wait until after Taiwan pitches today.
Yeah.
I would say you have to feel good about the Phils right now winning that division. I think we've seen the clear problems with the Mets rotation. We've seen, obviously, this start from the Braves. None of us expect Washington or Miami to be in any form competitive in this division. It might be worth the swing, even at plus 120, even with those odds not being all that juicy, might be worth the swing on the Phils.
I dig it. Yeah, they're balling, and it's the same team. It's that vibe, same vibe as last year. They were a great team last year. They came up short. We know how it took place, but I'm right there with you. I think that the Phillies still have what it takes, and who knows what could come as far as potential with the trade deadline is concerned. Getting a painter into the rotation, right? That's an expectation this year as well. That's only going to beef up that. Kepler's looked the part right now. It looks like he's fitting in nicely with this Citizens Bank Park behind him, and Schwarber's ripping the cover off the baseball. Like none of this stuff. Luzardo, yeah, looks pretty good.
Yeah.
There's a lot to like about the Phillies right now, and there was last year, and we'll see what happens. Let's keep it going. And Trey Turner, if Trey can even resemble, Trey even had a bad season last year. He still hit 20 home runs. He still hit 290, right?
Yeah.
In
120 games too. So he probably would have. I was just talking about this with Sean Bernard, who we ranked the Phillies 1 to 27 on Saturday's show. I don't think it was an electric segment. I'll just say that, going down a list of names. But it was fun to see, guys that you disrespected. Or he had Sosa really high. I didn't have Sosa nearly as high. He looked smart for that. He had Trey so low on the list, and I had to be like, hold up.
Yeah.
I get it. We're frustrated. But if he played the full season last year, he probably finishes close to 30-30.
Yeah. So if he can come back and be even close to a potential MVP candidate, look out, right? Sky's the limit. But this team's putting it together early. Again, they're in action. So we'll leave it at that. But it should be another victory. Let's put it that way. These Rockies, I feel for the Rockies, man. I do. I don't know any of these players. And you want to be a little less biased when you come to like handicapping these games, but you just look at it, like even Taiwan Walker at minus 210. If there's ever a chance or spot where you don't take the Phillies, it's right now. But there's no way you could convince me to put my money on the Rockies. No,
just bet the over. That's the way to go. But something I will say about this season, and a guy who, anytime anything goes wrong, everybody's ready to fire him the minute it happens. And I think everybody should. And I, at times, overreacted with Sirianni stuff. I think after last season and early this season, I was never saying, the season's over or anything. But I was more so concerned that we had an elite roster and maybe this head coach was wasting it. And obviously, I was wrong. He got all of it out of it. I think all of us that watched that happen should probably take a chill pill and admit that Rob Thompson's managing his butt off early so far this year, 4-1. I feel like he's pushed all the right buttons, pinch hitting with the lineup. Sosa's obviously gotten off to a great start. He's found ways to get him in the lineup. I thought the bullpen, feel like every time it goes to the bullpen, I'm like, they should bring this guy in and then that guy. And that's kind of what they do. They kind of just, throw Alvarado and Strom and Kerkering at you as their top guys. I think Topper's been doing a great job.
Yeah, I'm right there with you as well. And same thing with Nick Sirianni. Simply put, man, expectations are there. Got to meet them. And look, it's got to happen, right? Like they actually are rocking T-shirts I saw that say WAR, win a ring. Right? It's got to happen. This team has to, and it's not easy because this is the most difficult sport to get it done. 162 and then some, but they have the horses, they have the bodies, they have the players, they have the home field advantage. Like, let's go, put it together. Don't waste this opportunity. And not to say that they are trying to, but they did come up a little short last year. Let's talk about the Dodgers and the Padres just for a second, as far as that division is concerned. Like, do the Padres have a shot? They're also undefeated. DraftKings Sportsbook to show the numbers right now. They're plus 850 to win that division. Minus 575 the Dodgers are. Do the Padres have a shot?
No, not to win the division, I'd say. I think the Dodgers are the best team I've ever seen on paper in my lifetime. And they've started 8-0. So like, if this is a situation where the Padres were 8-0 and the Dodgers were like 4-4, then I'd be like, all right, maybe I'm willing to. But the Dodgers are also 8-0, so it's like, it's not like one team. It's not like the Padres are just overperforming and the Dodgers are underperforming. The Dodgers they have a run differential of plus 22 right now. Padres plus 25. I mean, that's pretty amazing too. But the Padres, everybody was skeptical coming into the year because there were all the rumors that they were going to trade Cease, all the rumors that they were looking to trade some guys in the lineup. I guess I think their owner died, if I'm not mistaken, and now it's kind of being fought over by the kids. And I think the one son wants to go all in, and the daughter wants to like cut cost and sell the team. I think it's almost like a little bit of like a major league storyline, except there's a brother there too. And then that a lot of that was put to the side. They went out and signed Pivetta pretty late in the offseason. Pivetta, really good first start for them, by the way, as well. And he's a nice, like, once you have Michael King and Dylan Cease at the top of your rotation, Pavetta's a nice guy to slot in there as a number 3, and he's really grown in Boston. I think Pavetta's become a pretty darn good pitcher. So great rotation from the Padres, great bullpen from the Padres. I think we know how good Tatis can be. We know Arias is going to hit 340 and, get a lot of hits and, maybe not a lot of power. But I think my questions with the Padres probably come with the lineup besides that. Like Machado is hitting the cover of the ball, batting 400. I should include Jackson Merrill in that first class. Jackson Merrill, really good player. Really, really
incredible.
Stud young guy. I don't know why I didn't include Merrill there. I guess my concern is more with like Ken Machado and Bogarts and Cronenworth and that kind of middle and bottom of the lineup. Kind of keep it up, because you look at the Dodgers middle and bottom of the lineup, and man, it's tough to hold up, especially when you talk about the fact they have the best rotation in baseball. But Padres will be in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, the NL playoff conversation is absolutely loaded. And by the way, that kind of goes back to what we were saying about Atlanta. You're Atlanta right now. You're looking at the Phillies starting 4-1. You're looking at the Dodgers and Padres 8-0 and 7-0. Diamondbacks are only 4-2. But I expect that team very much to be in the mix in the playoffs. The Mets obviously are going to be heard from. They're sitting there at 500 right now. The Giants are 5-1, not a team I expect to be in the mix, but they're 5-1 right now. So, and someone's got to win the Central. So it's going to be a loaded. There's going to be a team that misses the playoffs that we're looking at right now saying, how does this team miss the playoffs? It's probably the Mets or the Braves.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that one. You're right. And to the Central, which, whatever, but still the Cubs were favored to win that division. The Brewers, solid team, could they get back to the playoffs? Like you're exactly right, man. If the Braves don't fix this, and I believe Tansy said that a trip to Florida fixes it, right? Isn't that?
They play Miami this weekend.
Is that
no? Oh wait, that was wrong. Yeah, they play Miami, but it's in Atlanta actually.
Okay. So. Yeah, three against the Marlins will fix some things. Oh, by the way, and then the Phillies next week. How about that? Tuesday.
Tuesday, get them before Acuna and Strider come back.
I like that. Yeah, that's a 3-game set next Tuesday through Thursday. Phillies with some really good games in the month of April. I like that. All right, good stuff there. All right, let's keep it moving as far as Major League Baseball is concerned. Well, it was great to have a night without torpedo talk. That was good. It was the first game, first night that I haven't heard the term torpedo bats being discussed, and maybe we didn't see a bunch of home runs. I was saying, like, it's fun. It was cool to get into, but like, let's see what this is throughout the course of a season, 6 months, 3 months, whatever it may be, not just 4 games.
It's not that many people using it. It's overblown right now.
It is overblown. It is, but when Ellie De La Cruz gets the bat the day of and hits 2 bombs, it's like, all right, wait a minute, what's going on right now? And of course, Volpe goes yard yesterday. He's got 4 home runs. Like, oh, wait a minute, he's hit like 23 in a season, and that's it. So, I think there is something there. But at the end of the day, these things have been, yeah, exactly. All right. Major League Baseball again, full card this evening/afternoon. A lot of day action here. You said you were on the Phillies. You have another play in the MLB, Mark?
Yeah, I'm on the over in the Phillies game. That's my best bet for the day. But I'm on the over tonight in D-backs Yankees.
Nice.
Not great. Carrasco on the mound, 13 ERA, rough first start, rough couple seasons. I like Merrill Kelly a lot, so it's not a fade on Merrill Kelly. But I thought about taking just the D-backs team total. Feels dumb to not take, if you're going to take an over in a Yankees game, to not get the Aaron Judge of it all. So yeah. I'm going to go with just the full game over. If you wanted to go D-backs instead, though, 4.5, not a bad number.
Took the Yankees the last 2 times, 2 games out, team total. I was joking, and we'll continue today. 1 win and then a loss yesterday. Team total was 3.5 at -140. So I took a shot at it. Again, just having some fun, more exclusive to just the show. And again, the way the Yankees were ripping the cover off the baseball, was hoping that we would go on like a big cat run, 16 straight, but it already came to a close, 1-1. But we'll fire it back up tonight. Why not? Since you're over there, that team total is probably what, 5.5, 4.5?
Yeah, it's probably 5.5, probably plus money. Let me take a look here because I know Arizona. Oh, you can get 4.5 juiced up, like -135, -130. Yeah, I'm actually surprised it's only 4.5.
Yeah, I'll take a little bite on that one too. Still run with the bit here as far as that is concerned. All right, from MLB, and we're going to take a hard right. Let's talk about the NFL. Of course, we got the draft, your time to shine, ready to come up here soon. And but we had a trade today, Mark Henry Jr. I texted you and you said a Jerry Jones special. And I have to agree with you. Like, this does seem, of course, what Jerry has done before. But Joe Milton had some decent buzz. So I'm curious, as far as the latest right here from NFL Network, Dallas sent a 5th and 7th round pick to New England in exchange for Joe Milton, the 2nd round quarterback from the New England Patriots. As far as Milton is concerned, did the Patriots get enough, a 5th and a 7th, in your mind?
Yeah, definitely. Joe Milton's not an NFL quarterback. And Joe Milton has everything that I would normally love in a quarterback. The tall, athletic guy, can move, rocket arm. But I've watched enough Joe Milton in college to know that he can throw the ball 100 miles per hour, 50 yards away. And if he has to throw 5 yards away, he can also throw the ball 100 miles per hour, 5 yards away. So there's very little control on, his arm talent. He's obviously so talented. Maybe he's a fine, like, kind of a backup guy who you throw him in there and it's like, whoa, this guy can move around and throw it 60 yards. But once you actually get a real look at him, I think it's not going to go well over like a multi-game sample size.
Joe Milton or Jared Milroe?
Milroe. I'll take Jalen Milroe. I'm doing my comps. It's funny. And people are, for Shane Haff and I and Dibes do a draft guide that we put out on Google Sheets. And one of the columns is I do an NFL comp for every player. And he was one where I like doing the poor man's and rich man's a lot, because sometimes you get a comp and it's like, oh, it makes so much sense. But then it's like a little lofty, or maybe that's not nice. Or yeah, and I don't think poor man's is enough to sell it. Jalen Milroe is homeless man's Jalen Hurts. Like, he is Jalen Hurts if he never went to Oklahoma, basically. Like, if Jalen Hurts would have come out of college after getting benched that year against Tua, where he won a national championship the year before. The next year he goes to there and gets benched for Tua. That's Jalen Milroe. Like all of the clay to mold. Now, I think the questions that you ask yourself is Jalen Milroe similar to Jalen Hurts, where it seems like Jalen Hurts, the only thing in the world that he cares about is football. He seems like he'd have every intangible you could possibly want from a quarterback age 21 to 24 to get better and improve their craft. Seems like he has every leadership quality that you would buy in on and say, this guy's going to get better and this guy's going to work his butt off. I don't know that about Milroe. Like, and I'm not saying he does or doesn't have that. That's on NFL teams to kind of figure out. But I'm seeing a lot of people compare him to Justin Fields. And I think that's because people don't want to compare him to Jalen, because they don't want to compare this guy who should probably go in the third round to the guy who just won Super Bowl MVP and is one of the best quarterbacks on the planet.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. But Justin Fields was an incredibly accurate passer in college. People wash away what Fields was in college. And this was a guy putting up close to 5,000 yards, like 70% completion percentage, was able to make all the throws. Milroe's not that coming out. Milroe is unmolded clay that hopefully you can kind of mold into being the guy that you hope can turn into your guy going forward. And the physical traits and the deep ball ability, yeah, there's enough to buy into to make a third round pick on a guy like Milroe. If you're a team that's desperate for an option going forward and maybe you have a stopgap guy, I have Milroe 68th overall. So I do think Milroe, I buy him as a backup more than Milton.
68th overall. What quarterbacks do you have in front of him besides Shedeur and Cam Ward?
Just Dart. I only have 4 quarterbacks in my top 100. And he's my QB4. At 68. So I have Dart at overall, I have Dart at 55. He's my QB3. A lot of Bo Nix with Dart. Hard to watch Bo Nix do what he did and not think Dart has the same physical traits and same kind of experience to do the same. Question with him, similar to like the Milroe Hurts attitude dynamic kind of question, is really, does he go to a situation like Bo Nix did with Sean Payton, one of the smartest offensive minds in the sport? That's a big question there for Dart. So I like Dart. I don't think there's that much that separates Dart from Shedeur and Ward, to be honest. But I'm not high on any of these guys.
Yeah. How many quarterbacks go in the first round?
2.
Dart does not go in the first round.
I don't think so. I think he goes on I think he goes on day 2, whether it be the second or the third round.
Do you think NFL teams, specifically with Jalen Milroe, and of course what Dallas just did, making the trade, maybe not so much Dallas because that doesn't work for it, but with Milroe, do you think like Anthony Richardson was he was a top 5 pick, right? We have top 5, which is just crazy, and he, I don't know, not necessarily didn't have any business going that high, but his flaws were his flaws, and his flaws are still there, right? Hell of an athlete. But do you think like maybe that hurts Milroe this year with what took place and how Richardson has panned out so far early in his career?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think you've now seen guys like Richardson, or a guy like Levis who didn't go as high. Will Levis. Levis went on day 2 as well. But he was another guy where it's like, yeah, the tape is tough. Yeah, there's these concerns. But man, look at him in shorts and look at him in this workout room and look at him at the combine. And oh my God, this guy can throw it 80 yards, moving to his left, throwing across his body. Like, can he throw a curl? I don't know. It might be a pick 6, but that's kind of the problem with those guys. And Milroe, I couldn't. That's a great question, and I think you're absolutely right. I think if Levis or Richardson or both fully pan out, then I think you're talking about a guy who's probably going much higher. I do think that the NFL is reactive in that way. And I think that the reason people like Cam Ward is I think they can squint and find the CJ Stroud in him, and they can squint and they can find the Texans version of Deshaun Watson and those types of guys. I haven't landed on a comp for Cam Ward because I'm not nearly as high on Cam Ward. I don't think Cam Ward is great at anything when it comes to like, I don't think he's got an elite arm. Like a lot of Jordan, I tweeted out a list of players who I'm still looking for comps on. And Nick McClay replied and said shorter Jordan Love for Cam Ward. And not Nick McClay knows this stuff even more than I do. Nick McClay's a great follow for draft stuff. What I will say is I've seen a lot of that Jordan Love comp. I don't think Ward's arm is nearly as dynamic and special as Love's. Like, I think Love is a top 3, top 5, just pure arm talent in the sport. And I think that's why he's able to make the plays he's able to make. And he's also more physically gifted than Cam Ward, but it's more about the arm to me. And I have it like for Shador, I think Shador's Geno Smith. Like, I think that comp is like cut and dry. I can see like the exact kind of problems that they both have, and Shador maybe still having in 10 years when he's Geno's age. With Ward, I haven't been able to land on that comp yet. I can't find the exact right kind of thing.
It's interesting. I'm a Cam Ward fan. It's not I'm a guy, but I'm pulling for him just because of his story where he's been. Yeah, going 1 overall, like bet on himself. You know, it's documented where he was playing, went and was able to do what he did with Miami last year, and now he's going number 1 overall. So I love that. But you're right. When it comes down to like, what is his comp? That's an interesting question. He does have some buzz. He does have some pop with his arm. That's the one thing that did catch my attention. But, you know, is Cam Ward as good as he was in Miami? Like, will he get better? It's a good question. But the Tennessee Titans seem to be locked and loaded and taking him at number 1 overall. Good luck, because they have a ton of holes. But, man, if you don't have a quarterback in this league, you're just not going to win. You're not. You're just not going to win. So is that the case for Dallas with this trade, getting back to Millen? And there are some people out there on our timeline right now. 2 takes. First of all, Ben Volen, who is from the NFL writer at the Boston Globe. Oh, so he would know. He said another team that showed interest in trading for Milton, the Eagles. And then you got, speaking of the Eagles, LaShawn McCoy says Dak Prescott better find a realtor because Joe Milton can play. You know, you said that this is a Jerry move because of what took place with Trey Lance, I assume, right?
Yes,
but like, why else make this move? Like, is there any, there was smoke. Is there any fire with this Cleveland Browns situation, the possible trade? Is Dak in any environment where he needs to be looking on over his shoulder? Why make this trade?
I think that Jerry just likes to play like Hollywood squares with his backup quarterback and get like the big name where it's like, ooh, that's exciting. That's a sexy name. He signed Randall Cunningham late in his career, Quincy Carter. Like you could go down the list of all the guys. And, you know, and then he had the era of guys where he like fell in love with them and made them coaches like Jason Garrett, and fell in love with Andy Dalton for a while. But I think it's, you know, it goes right in that Trey Lance bucket of, oh, this is an exciting name. Like I'm looking through the glory hole. This guy could, you know, come in, and if that gets hurt, we could win it all. Like Jerry seems to. I actually think for a long time, Jerry, you go look at his like draft record. I'd have to go look at it and find the exact kind of run, but he had a pretty good run, like 20, maybe you want to say like from the Dak draft up to like the last couple of years. He had a lot of good finds in there, like, and even before that, you know, Zach Martin, and he's made a lot of really good draft picks. And for a long time, we made fun of Jerry and made fun of him having to be the GM. And I kind of would always be like, man, they're really competitive. Like they're winning a lot of games, and he keeps them relevant. I think we've officially reached the point of kind of that it's comedy, that he's still running this team and he's totally senile, and he didn't have a very good draft the last couple of years. I think he's going on 2 maybe shaky drafts these last 2 years. But I mean, when was Parsons? Parsons was 2021. So even as recently as 2021, that was a great pick. Like I wouldn't have made that pick because I had Parsons like 18th or 19th overall. I did not. I think I got fooled by Penn State not using him correctly a lot of the time. And that's a great pick by him. So even up to that point, he was still making some pretty good picks. Now he's a comedy.
Yeah. And I think, like, you know, some of these picks that he's making at the beginning of the draft are not, look, like you said, people were wondering about Micah Parsons, but he did have some explosive plays. Like, he did look like an elite guy. It did fit, like, the Dallas Cowboy way. And then, of course, with CeeDee Lamb, like, that was an easy pick at the end of the day, too. He's my favorite receiver. Like, so some of those picks. But, yeah, to your point, like, Jerry is just God.
CeeDee Lamb, to this day, since I've started doing this seriously, I'd say since 2019 with the draft grades, CeeDee Lamb is the best wide receiver prospect I've ever evaluated. It was
So
a
good.
joke that he went 16th.
Yeah.
I still can't believe it to this day. The
Yeah.
only one, Marvin Harrison Jr. was probably a cleaner prospect. Like, probably like, oh, there's no way this guy isn't. Well, it's kind of funny. I was first year away, but there's no way this guy isn't at least like his floor was probably higher. But I always thought like, man, CD could be the best receiver in the sport within 5 years, and I think he's in that conversation.
I agree with you on that one. All right. Anything else as far as the NFL draft that you have your eye on that might catch people off balance or surprised here over the next couple of weeks? This is the time where the talking is happening.
Yeah, I guess I'll ask you before I give my opinion on it. Have you heard any of the Ted McMillan kind of back and forth on Twitter? He's very polarizing player. Ted McMillan.
Saw the one video where he's like, I don't watch tape.
Yeah, that's not great. It's not a great. Apparently, it was like 3 years ago. Allegedly, that video. I don't know if that's changed, to be honest. But Steve Smith put out a video clowning his technique and saying he's a bad route runner, and the Arizona head coach fired back, and like there's all this stuff back and forth now with Steve Smith. I love Ted McMillan. I'm all in on Tet. I have him as my number 5 guy. I think he's a blue chip guy. He's my only first round graded receiver in this entire draft class, which pushes him up a bit for me, up the board. Because I think if you want to take a swing at a guy who you think can be a wide receiver 1 in the NFL, the only chance you have at that in this draft is Tet McMillan. To me, he's Drake London with more yak, like more ability to kind of break out and make big plays after making the contested catch or after making the catch across the middle. So I'm fully aboard the T-Mac train. Maybe that's because I'm a Tracy McGrady and I guess I'm not a Tom McCarthy fan, but shout out to T-Macs all over the place. But Ted McMillan, I'm all in. I think this guy should go top 5. I think he's going to end up falling a little bit further than we think. I think he's going to go fringe top 10, fringe top 15. And we're going to be saying, how did this guy fall? Because there does seem to be those detractors out there like Steve Smith. What I'd say about that is I think there's a lot of people like that anytime there's a receiver above 6'3" who might not look like, oh my God, he's a perfect route runner. I think the Steve Smith types who think that route running is like the only reason that receivers could ever be good lose the plot a little bit and don't realize, oh, this is a guy with insanely physical traits at 6'5" who's really fast and really agile and can go up and make big plays. So I think sometimes people overrate technique and sometimes look a little too far past just, the RAS chart, the height weight skills and everything like that. So I'm a Tet guy. I'm a T-Mac guy.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, man, you see all these rookie receivers having unbelievable seasons. And like you said, that list is short. So if you need somebody to have an impact immediately, the fact that he said something 2-3 years ago and the fact that Steve Smith isn't a big fan. Steve Smith, no one's a better wide receiver than Steve Smith, right? Like, just ask him. So, you got to take that. But there seem to be some people that are saying that as well. Look, if he ends up in the right spot, I think the teams will be taking a flyer on him. And could he drop a pick or two? Sure. But I think there's going to be an immediate stop somewhere where somebody's going, wait a minute, like you said, this guy's way too good to be right here. Let's take him. So we'll see what happens on that one. But definitely something to keep our eye on as the draft is fast approaching, coming down at the end of April. All right, quickly on this, 2-3 minutes here, Final Four. Of course, you will be live on Saturday, 11-1. Let's start with the first game of the evening, Florida and Georgia. We're looking at 2.5. Or excuse me, yeah, Florida, not Georgia. Florida and Auburn. Florida 2.5-point favorites, now down to 159.5 on DraftKings Sportsbook. Where are you going, Mark?
It's struggle. This Final Four is a struggle for me from picking a gambling standpoint. Obviously, you have 4-1 seeds. It makes it a little tougher.
Sure.
I'd be lying if I said the Janai Broom thing doesn't concern me. I think if Janai Broom's fully healthy, I'm confident on Auburn, and I'm taking the 2.5. I think Florida is lucky to be here, and I hate to be the negative guy on Florida because I was negative at them. I called them the weakest one at the beginning. I could still be right, I guess. They could be the first one eliminated, I guess, in the first game here. But Texas, everybody, there was a big reaction after that Texas Tech game where there's, half the people saying like, what an amazing comeback by Florida. But I'm with the other half saying, oh my God, what a collapse by Texas Tech. To me, that felt like Texas Tech giving the game away more than Florida taking it. Obviously, Walter Clayton, a couple of amazing buckets. He's an absolute killer. But I think if we're looking at the path for all these guys, I think Florida's the luckiest team to be here. And I think this would be like a pick 'em or a 1.5 point favorite if Janai Broom didn't have that weird injury at the end of the game. I am worried. I get that he played at the end of the game. He was playing with one arm. Like, he wasn't raising his one arm out there.
Still shot a 3 and made it.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. He's got a week off. They're going to shoot up everything they can shoot up in that arm to get him ready to go and feeling no pain. But I'm going to take Auburn, but I'd be lying if I said I'm taking it very confidently. I will say whoever wins this game has the right to lose in the national championship.
Nice. All right, let's get to the main event.
Yeah,
I think both games are going to be amazing, but I really can't wait to see Houston and Duke. Like, there have been plenty of smart minds making the case for Houston. I think Beef did last night, and Sean Bernard made the case for Houston. I'm all duked up. I'm not a prisoner in the moment, though, because I would jump off my play in a second if I thought that Houston was going to win this game. I think it's going to be a great game. I'm definitely afraid of giving 5.5 if that's the number that it goes off of. That's a lot of points, but that's the price you got to pay when you're rolling with Duke at this point in time, who's been given crazy numbers all season long. I do like Duke. I like Florida as well. So I got Florida going in that one. Are we going head to head on this one as well?
Yeah, I'm going with Houston with the points. I think this game comes down to who gets the ball last, final possession. 65-64 type game. Like, I think this is going to be a defensive slugfest. And I know everybody watches Duke and you think about, the Showtime Laker moments where Cooper Flagg's throwing alley-oops on the fast break to Malawak and all the amazing stuff they can do. But I think of just how amazing Duke is defensively. And they shut all windows and doors against Alabama. That was such an incredibly impressive performance, and Duke has lined up incredibly impressive performance after incredibly impressive performance, etc. I will say the Arizona one, I think you could probably pick apart some concerns with the defense there. With Arizona scoring 93 points, Caleb Love just got unconscious and got hot. I don't know if that's a referendum on Duke's defense necessarily. And I'd be lying if I said, after that Purdue game, going to that Tennessee game, I forget, it must have been my show, I guess, but I referred to, I was worried about this trend that Houston seems to be collapsing in the last 5 to 7 minutes of games. They had a 10-point lead on Gonzaga with 2 minutes to go, and Gonzaga had the ball down 3 with 20 seconds left. They had a 10-point lead on Tennessee with 10 minutes to go, and it was tie game, or on Purdue, I should say, and it was a tie game right until the end. They had to make the final shot with the amazing play call from Kelvin. But then you finally saw the Houston Cougars that I've been kind of pitching all year long against that Tennessee game. And that was the game that reminds you, oh yeah, this team's only lost one time since Thanksgiving. Oh yeah, this team has only lost one game all year in regulation. I think this Houston team is truly special. But what I will say is whoever wins this game wins the national championship, and whoever wins the national championship is one of the 5 to 10 greatest teams of all time, or at least greatest teams I've ever seen. And whoever wins this game, it's one of the most impressive feats any team can have, in my opinion. With Houston being the best defensive team in the country, that is also the best 3-point shooting team in the country. We just saw what they did to Tennessee. And then with Duke being the best Duke team I've ever seen. This Duke team is truly special on both ends. So, I cannot wait to watch this game.
Same, right there with you. And it's crazy to think like how likable Duke is too, as well. Yeah. Like, that's the funny part about it. But Shire's pretty cool. I think he's a good dude. And, he hasn't played, or he hasn't been there all that long, but he's been there at least long enough that, like, I should be developing this Duke like venom towards him, like, man, but he's not slapping the floor. He doesn't want. He had a great answer about Cooper Flagg the other day. Like, Dan Patrick asked him, "Have you asked him about coming back?" And he's like, "No." It's like, no, I'm not going to. No, he's not. He's coming. He's going to the NBA. He's number 1 overall pick. Like, let's not waste each other's time. And the dude can flat out shoot too.
I do like the storyline, though. Houston, 6 Sweet 16s, 2 Final Fours, 3 Elite Eights in the last 6 years. That should be 3 Final Fours because they should have been there last year. And Jabal Shed goes down in the first
Duke
half of
beat
that
'em.
game. They lose 54-51 to Duke. I love the idea of Kelvin getting revenge. Nobody in the sport deserves to be crowned as kind of the coach of the sport more than Kelvin Sampson. More tournament wins than anybody over the last 5 years. Houston was a program 1985 to 2013, 0 tournament wins, 0-6 in their tournament appearances. They are, I think it's 18-6 in their last 24 games. They've won 18 games in his tenure or something like that. He is, I think he's the best coach in the sport outside of Hurley. Maybe he's a short king, so that's why I love him. But I've grown to love Kelvin Sampson.
Also, I believe Beef said it yesterday where it's like when a team is from the home state that the Final Four is in. I think 7 out of the last 8 they've won, I want to say.
I haven't heard that. That's fun.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, and obviously with Texas and San Antonio, all that good stuff.
Duke will travel. I think Duke's going to travel plenty.
Yeah, we'll see what that atmosphere is like, man. I hate those games on those big stages. I really do, but it is what it is. Not much you can do about it. It's not going to poo-poo those games for me, that's for sure. No. Mark, you're the best. Great job as always. We'll continue to follow you on all things socials and listen to you on the Tough Cover Radio Show on Saturday coming up. 11 to 1, getting you ready for all things March Madness. Of course, we'll be talking some MLB, mixing it up with Sean Bernard. Be sure to follow Mark on socials at Mark Henry Jr. _ You're the best. Mark, don't go anywhere. We got plenty of programming coming your way, including Sean Bernard. Him and I got together to talk about the NBA. Recent news with Joel Embiid, MVP race heating up, ? And a potential playoff matchups. And then at 5 o'clock, you'll hear myself with Ryan Beef Coyle. We got together late last night. We talked about all things March Madness, wax poetic, allowed Beef to just go ahead and give us his takes on everything Final Four. Oh, by the way, we talked a little Crown as well. So jam-packed couple hours right here on The Gambler. Don't touch that down. If you missed anything, at foxphlgambler.com.